I don't know why it took me so many years to get on board with this, but if you struggle with perfectionism, if you want to know what has drastically changed my art practice over the past few months, then this is the video for you. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and in this video I'm going to be sharing something that has made such a massive difference to my art, to the way that I create, and also to how much I am enjoying creating art. And that, my friend, is this sketchbook. Or for you, it may look like this sketchbook, or maybe this sketchbook. My point is that it's not necessarily a question of a specific brand of sketchbook or a specific type of sketchbook. It's beyond that. It's the concept of a low pressure sketchbook. Some of you are going to be like, my sketchbook is a low pressure sketchbook. This is where I create all the time and I mess around. And if that's the case, I'm very happy for you. It took me a while to get to this point. I am so eager to hear and see any tips that you have down below in the comments. For the rest of us who perhaps struggle a lot more with perfectionism, who kind of feel like you can't really use your art supplies because your skills are not good enough yet, whatever the reason may be, then I think that this is definitely the video for you. And this is essentially the idea of a low pressure sketchbook, or an ugly sketchbook, a normal sketchbook, a Sketches sketchbook. The names are many, but the concept is the same. And that is essentially having a place where you can fully experiment inside this sketchbook. Your aim is not to create a wonderful masterpiece to do like a sketchbook tour of afterwards. It is not to create a specific kind of sketchbook. So it's not that you have to only make messy sketches or you only have to create perfect sketches. The aim is literally to just have a low pressure place where you can go to and create anything that you want. If you want to swatch, you swatch. If you want to paint portraits, you paint portraits. If you want to draw, doodle, whatever it may be, you do any and all of those things inside this sketchbook. And for me, I know a lot of people call it an ugly sketchbook, but I don't think it's ugly. And so I like to think of it just as a low pressure sketchbook. And this is something that has really helped me with my perfectionism, and also has really got me excited to create, has really helped me use my supplies more instead of just like looking at them and thinking I can't use them yet. You know, I wanted this to kind of be like a super nice and structured video, but I think it's going to be a little bit more of like a chat, and that's fine. That's I will highlight how I use my low pressure sketchbook, the benefits from me using the low pressure sketchbook, and then some tips for you to also take that on board. And as I say, if you have one already, then I am more than interested to hear about it down below. But for me, the way that I kind of came to it is that I tend to have 6 to 10 sketchbooks at the same time, which I know sounds wild. And if you don't believe me, I've made plenty of videos highlighting them and why. But in a nutshell, it's that I like having a sketchbook for my like watercolor florals. I like having a sketchbook for my gouache landscapes. I like having a sketchbook for my portraits. I just like all the subjects completely divided. And I like, you know, being able to go back to them and see like the gradual progression in that kind of medium, or the progression in that subject. I just really like that. And also I don't know, there was just something nice and soothing about everything kind of being really organized. But I think one of the drawbacks of that is that it then started putting me very much in a box, where, and also giving me decision fatigue, where if I wanted to create something, I would have to like search deep and be like, okay, well, do I want to doodle? So should I bring out my doodle sketchbook? Or do I want to draw people? Or do I want to paint? Or do I want to do X, Y, and Z? And sometimes it would just mean that I just don't end up creating anything, or that I create a specific thing because that's the sketchbook that's nearest to me. And at the beginning of this year, I decided to just buy a sketchbook, with the aim being that I would create different subjects in different medias inside it. And this grated me. It goes against my natural instincts to do this, but I told myself that I would try. And I've actually made a video of when I started it, because it was part of the portraits challenge that I did. I'll link the video for you, because I essentially started it when I was doing my portraits challenge, which in itself was, I guess, like a commitment to this sketchbook, because I'm not confident or that confident when I'm doing portraits, and I've already decided to, and I started it off with something that I wasn't super confident with. Now, did I start the first page? No, I'm not that brave as of yet. I still love leaving that first page blank, but I did do something that I don't normally do, and that is doing portraits in coloring pencils, which is completely different. And a few days later, when I knew that it was actually serious, it was that, you know, I did a painting in here, which was like, whoa, I've done pencil and paint. And then when I knew like, no, I'm actually committed, is when I did swatches inside this sketchbook as well. And at this point I was like, right, it's a low pressure sketchbook. And I think in terms of like structuring this, to give you tips as well, one of the things that I would recommend is starting with a sketchbook that you're not going to be overly precious about. If for you, like me, the cost is like something that you often think about, then start with a sketchbook that perhaps is a little bit less expensive, or start with a sketchbook that, you know, the sole purpose of this is to wreck this sketchbook, is to create bad art, is to create doodles, swatches, drawings, whatever it is that you want, and just allow yourself to sacrifice this one sketchbook for the sake of your art journey, okay? Just bear with me. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. So for me, it was this Royal Talon sketchbook because it was relatively inexpensive. I liked the color of it. I'd heard relatively good things about it, and it had so many pages that I kind of thought that, you know, it would help me be less precious about it. The next kind of important thing for me was kind of setting out, not necessarily rules, but just like trying to understand what it was that I wanted to get out of this. And for me, I really just wanted a place that I could create everything and not like worry about it and not have to share it online. If I wanted to share it, I could, but I just wanted to have a place where I could create everything and it not disturb me. And that is essentially what this soon became. If you're enjoying this video, then don't forget to hit the like button and to consider subscribing so that you don't miss future videos. But with no further ado, let us continue. My art practice completely started to improve. Why? Because I was creating more often. I'd removed that element of like decision fatigue. Was overcoming that element of I guess that element of perfectionism, because to me, the sketchbook was already kind of ruined in a way, in that it had so many different mediums and so many different subjects and swatches and everything in the first few pages, that there was really no true way of recovering this sketchbook and turning it into a finished masterpiece, as I quite often see my other sketchbooks, or, you know, like a series of wonderful masterpieces. That sounds so cocky, but I don't mean it in a cocky way. What I mean is that a lot of the time when I'd look back on my other sketchbooks, or when I create in my other sketchbooks, I'm trying to create finished pieces. I'm trying to create beautiful paintings that I will love to look back on, and I almost see the whole sketchbook as a collection of that. And I think that one of the drawbacks of having something like that is that you then end up not wanting to push yourself outside your comfort zone, right? If you're not making any bad art, if you're not making any art that you look at and you're like, oh, then you're not really pushing yourself, I feel, out of your comfort zone. Or certainly I wasn't really pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I was only making things that I was comfortable with. I was only making things that I thought were good and that I knew or felt that I was quite good at. And as a result, I think that if you do that continuously, you can sometimes end up getting bored, or you can limit yourself unknowingly. And I'm not saying that you should always like be outside your comfort zone and be uncomfortable when you're creating art, no, but I'm saying that there's a difference between having a comfort medium or comfort subject or something that you enjoy creating and going back to, and genuinely just making the decision that you're not going to create anything that is bad, and thus you just keep yourself in a little cocoon and in a little box. And that is essentially what I was doing through those sketchbooks. So this sketchbook, I felt like I'd almost like wrecked it with the way that I started with a medium that I wasn't comfortable with, that I was new to, and that's pencils. I started with a subject that I struggle with, and that is faces. And then I mixed medias, which I don't normally do in terms of like going from pencil and then adding paintings. And then I started swatching. And then even beyond that, I started making notes. So at this point, there was really like, it was beyond, it's the point of no return. I couldn't go back. But it just made it so much fun, because it literally meant that each page was a fresh page and I could do whatever I wanted, because I couldn't ruin this sketchbook. The sketchbook was already ruined. But now it's one of my favorite sketchbooks, in that it's really one that I really look forward to picking up and to using, because I know that I can doodle in it, I can draw in it, I can paint in it, I can sketch in it. And I've made like a separate review video about the sketchbook, the physical sketchbook itself, because it's not one that I like. Like, I don't like it for mixed media. I don't like it for painting. I think it handles dry media well, but not wet media exceptionally well. So it's not like the physical sketchbook that I'm in love with. In fact, I probably won't buy this sketchbook again, but it's more so the freedom that I felt every time I created in it. And as a result, my art started changing because I started playing around with mixing different medias, because why not? I started playing around with different subjects. I did still life, I painted from life, I drew from life, I did like random doodles. I did everything in this sketchbook. I wouldn't say that all of them were actually successful. And I think that that kind of fun and that kind of freedom then made me even more excited to create, even more excited to like bring out my art supplies and to spend time creating art. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't given myself the permission to actually just mess around and try things that I don't necessarily think that I am that good at, and see how it goes. And as a result, my art challenges for Ko-fi, I feel like also got like this burst of life and burst of excitement and inspiration, because I was messing around and I was really like, I was just inspired. Like, this sketchbook inspired me and inspired me to continue to create. This is like a very chatty, long-winded way to say that I think you need a low pressure sketchbook, if you don't already have one, to allow yourself to explore color, explore techniques, explore things that you like, push yourself outside of your comfort zone, all in a comfort of a sketchbook that you have gone in with the mentality knowing that the sketchbook is wrecked for the sake of your art, so that your art can improve, so that your techniques can improve, and so that you can discover new things and find new loves. So definitely consider getting a low pressure sketchbook. In terms of the tips that I have for you, I would say 1, make sure that it's a sketchbook that you perhaps feel less precious about. That's what benefited me the most, because it then meant that I lowered the barrier to entry and I just felt like I could create anything in there because it was an affordable sketchbook. I would also then say, pick a sketchbook that you're going to enjoy. So everyone's going to be different in terms of what kind of sketchbook they're going to be drawn to. But I feel like if you really enjoy creating, watercolor washes, and you really want to explore watercolor in this sketchbook, then consider getting a watercolor sketchbook. Sketchbooks should be something that you look forward to creating in, that is relaxing, that's fun, that's enjoyable, and that also stems from being a sketchbook that you enjoy. So don't get necessarily the cheapest sketchbook that you will dread using, that will peel when you use watercolor, if watercolor is your favorite medium. Just try to balance it, something that you're not super precious about, but also something that you really enjoy and want to use. And that is the perfect, like, where those two kind of meet is the perfect kind of sketchbook. Next, what worked for me was removing the expectation of finished pieces and just accepting that I could create finished pieces if I wanted to, but the aim of the sketchbook wasn't to do that. It was just literally to do whatever I wanted. So if I wanted to do a small sketch, I could. If I literally just wanted to see how different colors blended together, I could do that too. Just remove the pressure and the idea that this sketchbook has to be a finished work of art for you to present. This is a private, secret sketchbook, if you want it to be, that you're using to develop the tools and the skills to create art that you will come back to later on, okay? I'd say also, like, use it regularly, try and use this as an opportunity to build the habit of creating. I feel like you're removing decision fatigue because you know that you're going to be using this sketchbook. You're removing the pressure of expectations because you know that you can create whatever you want inside it. So also use it as an opportunity to build an art practice, a regular art practice. This will look different for everyone. Some people it'll be daily, some people it'll be weekly, some people it'll be monthly. I'm not here to dictate how often you should create art, just that I feel like I felt the biggest changes when I was actually using it regularly, and that's when I enjoyed it most. Because it was like a low pressure sketchbook, I did create pieces that I really like. Some of my favorite paintings are actually inside this sketchbook, not because the quality of the paper is excellent, but more so just because I allowed myself to play and experiment and actually ended up doing things that I hadn't done before that I really liked and I really enjoyed. Some pages are not wins. Like, when I look at this one again, it's not one of my favorites. I was just messing around with the artist pit pens, but I look back on it fondly because I experimented, and because I feel like it's all these kind of ups and downs, wins and losses, that then led me to kind of create some of the pieces that I absolutely love, like this. I can't explain to you how much I love this painting that I made in a super relaxed setting while sitting on the couch and just looking at a picture of pears. Like, it's absolutely one of my favorites. And then from there, I just kept playing and exploring with color. Next, I'd also say don't overthink it. Like, if you wake up one day and you want to sketch animals, then do it. If you want to do something else, then do that. Like, there is no right or wrong way of doing it. I don't think that you're necessarily trying to create a messy sketchbook that looks a certain type of way or has a certain kind of aesthetic or matches the aesthetic of anything that we see online. That is not the aim of this sketchbook. It's going to be completely personal and independent to you. So don't overthink it. Just create what you want. It's completely fine. And I'd say that the other thing that really worked for me was actually just using it. You've started it, you've maybe wrecked it in the way that I did it, or done something in the way that I did that makes you more comfortable with actually using it. So actually use it. And I think if you love the idea, but you're like, I can't do it, I can't create messy piece after messy piece, or explore, or do any of those things that I'm mentioning inside one sketchbook, and have that something, like, if that's really going to break your heart and be like an eyesore for you to look at, then the only other alternative that kind of helped me dip my toe into this before I got a sketchbook is to have loose sheets and just create that way until you get to a point where you feel comfortable enough to actually approach it and do it in a sketchbook. I do think that there's a beauty and something liberating about having it all in a sketchbook, but we are all different. So it may be that for you, actually, what is best is just having loose sheets, and you just literally fresh page after fresh page after fresh page, you create the art that you want, and that is completely fine as well. I didn't think that I would be sharing most of it, and my aim when creating this wasn't to share it. I didn't record most of the art that I actually made in here, just some of the pieces. But I don't know, like, I don't actually mind, despite all this pressure that I had put on myself. So this sketchbook is almost very nearly finished. In fact, I just have a few pages left. In the interim, I have started a new low pressure sketchbook, and that is this one. And that's just because this one has some watercolor paper. So naturally, as a result, I've ended up creating even more like watercolor pieces, and also swatching and messing around and doing landscapes and a whole bunch of different things that I honestly don't think I would have done beforehand. And I feel like there's a clear difference between the art that I was creating before and the art that I'm starting to create now, and it's just come as a result of allowing myself to experiment, to explore, and to see that actually I do like using different supplies together, and I do like different color schemes, and I do like a whole bunch of other things that I didn't know I liked because I didn't allow myself to practice in my sketchbook. So this is a very long-winded way to say, get yourself a low pressure sketchbook, have fun creating in it. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this. I have no idea if it's going to make any sense at all, but I hope that it does, and I hope that you get the takeaway message of have a place to create art where there is no pressure. Give yourself permission to experiment. Accept that your art does not have to be perfect, in fact should not be perfect inside the sketchbook. And if you are making what you would consider to be bad art, then it means that you're improving, that you are evolving, and that you are trying something, right? And it's as important to know what you don't like as it is to know what you do like. That attitude and that perception and that vision of your sketchbook matters more than whichever sketchbook you actually decide to use. As I've mentioned, I have plenty of sketchbooks, plenty that I will be making my way through, but ultimately I have a new way of looking at them. I have a new way of approaching sketchbooks. And as a result, I'm really excited to create in them, and I'm looking at them in a completely new light. So I hope that this helps you, because this is the kind of message that I feel like I probably needed but completely ignored 3 years ago when I first started doing all of this. But if you're still watching, then you are a real MVP, and I really, really, really appreciate you. Let me know that you're still watching by telling me if you have a low pressure sketchbook or not. If you're not sure where to start, then be sure to check out my art membership, where I share even more inspiration for you on your creative journey. Check out these next videos for more ideas from my sketchbooks. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.